Andy Irvine in support. Fenwick. Irvine staying in support. And there is the greatness. And we can now say greatness. The fourth try today for Andy Irvine.
It's obviously a massive thing to play for your country, but the Lions is that one step above that. Enemies, so to speak, become your best buddies. You form friendships for life. You meet so many different players from different countries, but you become great pals and you bond for life. Once you're in the Lions Club, you're in it until your dying days. My first tour was in 1974 to South Africa. Obviously, as a schoolboy and even just after leaving school, the Lions tours were always the highlight. I can remember watching them on television in black and white in the 60s. I had just left school when the 71 tour took place in New Zealand. And obviously that was a very historic tour because the Lions to win in New Zealand was really big time. I had no idea that 3 years later I would actually be touring myself with the Lions in South Africa. I was up in a place called Montrose, up in the north of Scotland, doing a survey on a property in the high street up there. And driving back down, I think it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I had the radio on in my car, and I heard it on the radio that I'd been selected. Now, in fairness, there was a letter in the post, but I had left early that morning, found out that I was going on the radio. I have to say, it was a fantastic tour. You know, we came home undefeated, an incredibly physical tour. Willie John McBride, the captain, he was on his fifth tour. You know, he basically said that the one thing you've got to do in South Africa is you've got to be physical. You've got to man up, especially in the forwards. But in fairness, Willie John was right because, you know, the South Africans, possibly as skillful as we were, perhaps not as quick, but the one thing that they did have was physicality. What they tried to do was intimidate you, and they tried to out-physical you. And in the end, we actually gave the South Africans a bit of a hammering up front. You know, the Lions pack were just incredible. We certainly had some great backs. JPR Williams at fullback, JJ Williams, he was in flying form on the hard grounds in South Africa. Gareth Edwards was probably the man of the tour. I always knew that I was going to go out as the second fullback with no real hope of making the test side because JPR Williams was in fantastic form. As the tour progressed, there was a chance that I might have made it on the wing, and I did in the third and fourth tests. I was also used quite a lot for goal kicking in those days because although Phil Bennett was the main kicker, my range was longer than Phil. And in South Africa, you know, we quite often attempted goals from our own half because the ball would fly so much further. But it was a marvellous occasion, and it was great to win the series. At that point it was 3-0, but we didn't just sneak it, you know, we absolutely hammered them. And in fairness to the South Africans, they were pretty generous in their praise because it had come as a hell of a shock to them to lose the tour. But they accepted, and in fairness to South Africa media and press, they were very much on the Lions side. I think they just appreciated great rugby. It was slightly disappointing that we didn't win the final match because, you know, the record was 21 wins and one draw. A few of us thought, well, perhaps it's a good thing that we didn't win because it does leave future Lions tours the opportunity to go completely, you know, with winning every match. Well, 77 was another huge milestone for me personally because, you know, to tour New Zealand really is the ultimate to play against the All Blacks. We lost the series 3-1. We were very unfortunate to lose the final test. We were literally beaten by the bounce of a ball. The other thing I remember about New Zealand was that we were unfortunate with the weather. The New Zealand winters are never great. It's not cold at all, but it's often very wet. And that was a particularly wet tour. Now, it didn't really suit our play because we still had a lot of pace in the backs. You know, we still had the likes of JJ Williams and Elgin Rees and Ian McGeechan, Phil Bennett. But in the soft grounds and muddy grounds, it's very difficult to evade tackles, and it becomes much more a power game. The Lions really were renowned for their back play and their elusiveness, but you couldn't do that in New Zealand. While it was still an enjoyable tour for me, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It didn't quite reach the same heights as South Africa in '74. 1980, it was a rather strange tour for me. I'd pulled my hamstring in the Hong Kong Sevens a month before the tour, and I thought I had it repaired, and we all met down in London, just about to board the plane. But because I'd pulled my hamstring, I had a very late fitness test, literally about 3 hours before boarding the plane. The doctor wasn't particularly happy with the progress I'd made, so I was sent home. So I flew down from Edinburgh to meet the players in the morning and flew back that night. We lost the first test. About half an hour after the final whistle, I got a call from Sid Miller to say, look, we've got a bit of a problem here. Can you get in a plane tomorrow and get out here? I went out the following day and then played in the final 3 tests. I really struggled a little bit with my hamstring. It wasn't quite right. I would play on a Saturday, but then couldn't train for the next 4 or 5 days. From a personal point of view, it was a disappointing tour. Got back involved with Lions tours again in 2009. I was actually chairman of the Lions in 2009 when they went to South Africa. And then in 2013 to Australia, I was actually manager of the tour. And then I also went again in 2017 as a board member of the Lions. So I did 3 tours as a player, and then I did 3 tours to South Africa, Australia and New Zealand as an official. But there was still the same camaraderie and fellowship with the players, and it still meant so much to the players. When I played in 74, there was about 100, 150 fans followed the Lions. By 2009, there was 25, 30,000 followed. And that last tour that I was at in New Zealand, it was almost like a home match when you went to the tests. You know, one complete side of the stadium was covered in red scarves and red bonnets. I mean, it's quite amazing, really.